Hello and welcome to a very special Tuesday before week one waiver wire show. My name is Adam Levitan, joined by the newest member of our NFL team, Sam Sherman. Sam will be focused on waivers for us this year, writing the article, doing the show, in Discord to help everyone out. Sam, welcome, buddy. How's it going?
I'm doing great. Yeah, really excited to be doing waivers content this season for ETR. When I accepted the job, I didn't know that Travis Kelce and Cooper Kupp were going to suffer injuries before week one. Now I'm second guessing everything. It's already a shit show, but no. Anyways, I'm really excited. A lot of stuff to talk about already, which is crazy this early in the season.
For sure. If you do not have our in-season product yet, head to the subscribe tab, NFL products here. If you'd like to see a full content schedule, you can head here as well. Of course, it is DFS season also, aka the best season, all our projections, top plays, live shows, tons of context around them and more, all part of the in-season product as well as Sam's waiver wire column. All right. This Kelce thing, man, I mean, this is a injury that can range anywhere from what I understand, no big deal, plays on Thursday, to could become really bad. Travis Kelce's backup is Noah Gray, who played around 50% of the snaps last year. I actually thought Noah Gray was an interesting prospect coming out of Duke. Really athletic guy, tested really well. They trusted him to play 50% of the snaps last year. For people who have Travis Kelce right now, Sam, what would you say to them about options on the wire and what they should be doing?
Yeah, it's a tough situation. If I'm a Travis Kelce owner in a sort of more shallow league, I'm probably not looking to back up Kelce with somebody on the Chiefs like Noah Gray. We can talk about Gray maybe for deeper leagues. For the Kelce owners in more shallow leagues, I'm probably first looking to see if one of these rookies that looks like they have a solid week one role, that would be Sam Laporta and Luke Musgrave. These guys are available on a lot of Yahoo and ESPN home leagues. I think those guys have pretty high upsides as talents, and their team seems to, based on preseason usage, seems to trust them right away. So those are interesting flyers that I think you can start in week one and may have some season-long value. Then other veterans I would look for, Juwan Johnson, Gerald Everett, and Dawson Knox. I think those guys all have pretty solid roles and should be available in a decent amount of leagues. So those are probably my top five targets for Kelce owners. I think the Noah Gray thing, he's certainly worth a stash, but I would trust those five ahead of Gray if you're looking for a starter in week one.
I'd agree. If you're in a really, really deep league, I do think that guys that are beyond that tier that Sam just mentioned, talking about Kate Otten, talking about Trey McBride, maybe even like Tyler Conklin. Like if you're in an absolute pinch, I think you can go to those guys if none of those guys are available. The issue comes in here, Sam, where we need to start dropping guys. And Joseph immediately asks the question, how do we decide who to drop to make your first few waiver claims? The reason we drafted a lot of these guys is wanting to see what they would do in week one. And now that we need to pick someone up for Kelce, well, now we can't even get to see what they do in week one. So any response here for Joseph? What types of profiles do we prefer to hold versus drop quicker?
Yeah, so my first thing, and this is maybe obvious to some people, but I think a useful tip to others. If you're rostering a backup defense, a backup kicker, that's obviously the first to go. So that's the first thing I'll say. Second would be if you're in a one quarterback league and you're rostering one of these backup quarterbacks that don't have a ton of upside, I would put sort of Russ Wilson, Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, those types of guys in that category. I would be comfortable dropping those guys. I think they're pretty replaceable. You can find guys similar to them on the wire throughout the season. So then if you don't have a backup quarterback, don't have a backup defense and kicker, the next sort of profile of guy I'm okay with dropping is sort of the more boring veteran that doesn't have a ton of upside. MVS, I like MVS as a best ball pick. I think he's, worth the roster spot in a lot of leagues, but it's tough to see him truly emerging as like a breakout star. I'd rather drop him than say drop someone like Quentin Johnston or even like Marvin Mims, who has more of a breakout profile. So I just think, you want to shoot for upside with your bench stashes at this point in the season. You don't hopefully need to be starting guys like Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, sort of these boring veteran types, I'm more okay with cutting those guys and sort of keeping the upside lottery tickets on the bench and cutting more boring veterans.
Exactly. I mean, think about what we're going to learn in week 1. Are we going to learn anything about MVS in week 1? I don't think so. Like, we know everything about MVS. So like, if we had to absolutely drop MVS, I'm okay with it. Whereas there's other guys who I wouldn't want to drop. You mentioned Marvin Mims. Like, what if Marvin Mims comes out against the Raiders and just blows the doors off? I mean, that's definitely possible here. And so I think that's at least worth noting. I mean, listen, Abe says you have to be a fool to drop MVS right now. I don't want to drop MVS, man, but there's a bunch of people in leagues with like 5 bench spots that just lost Kelsey and have to drop someone. You know what I mean? And so that's the thing about doing waivers content, Sam. As I back out here, one of the reasons I get so frustrated with waivers wires content is because it is so specific to people's teams. I agree with Abe. If I had a 10-person bench, I would never drop MVS.
Yeah,
I'm in home leagues with my friends from college. The bench is like 4 people. I can't hold on to MVS if I need a replacement from Kelsey. And so really need to think about your own league settings and everything. I mean, I could rant on this for hours, but any more comments on trying to apply waivers advice to people with all kinds of different formats and settings and league sizes?
It's really tough. And I totally agree with the frustration there. What I'm trying to do, at least in my written content, is sort of split up my research into sort of home league targeted research and pick up and drop recommendations, and then recommendations for deeper leagues. Obviously, there's a huge spectrum between your shallow home league with your buddies and super deep like tournament formats on FFPC, etc. So I try to do that to give sort of a flavor of the 2 different ends of the spectrum. But yeah, it's tough. I agree with Abe. Like, I'm sure in the league he's in, it would be dumb to drop MVS. Like, I'm sure he's right about that. But like you said, a lot of these leagues, you got 5 bench spots and you're deciding between dropping MVS and, Marvin Mims or MVS and Jalen Warren, and I'm 100% cutting MVS there if I need to pick up a starter at tight end on a Kelsey team or something like that.
Agreed. Okay. Yeah, and by the way, I know that people like to consume this stuff in different ways. Sam is going to be doing a list. If you don't have a lot of time, come to the list, see if there's anybody that catches your eye that you want to pick up. If for people that want to go way deeper, Sam is writing tons about all these guys, giving recommendations on how much of your roster, of your fab budget to blow on them, et cetera, et cetera. And so we know that people just have different time in different ways. We're trying to accommodate everyone here on the waiver wire. All right. Second big news is this Cooper Kupp situation. So similar to Kelsey, we have no idea how long Kupp is going to be out. We know he went to Minnesota to visit a specialist. We know that is extremely non-standard, at least in my opinion. People are speculating all kinds of things. You should see my mentions, Sam. I mean, there's doctors going back and forth at war over what is going on with Cooper Kupp. They say it's sciatica. They say it's his performance. And some people just say it's his hamstring. He went to Minnesota to see the best guy. But I don't know. But it doesn't seem good on Travis Kelce. I started taking a ton of Buca and Tutu Atwell in 20th round best ball drafts. That is not very relevant to managed waiver wire, though. If you have Cooper Kupp, or even if you don't, what do you think about Rams backup outlooks here?
Yeah, so, and I put Van Jefferson on the other list of more home league targets. I think I would prefer Van Jefferson if he's available above Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell. Van Jefferson, I think he's a bit of a polarizing talent. He was a 2nd-round pick. He did have over 800 yards 2 years ago as sort of the third fiddle to Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and then Odell Beckham eventually replaced Robert Woods back in that Super Bowl season for the Rams. So I think Van Jefferson's talent is pretty solid, and I definitely feel good about him being the leading Rams wide receiver if Kupp is not playing. If you are in a league where Jefferson is rostered, I think I would prioritize Puka Nacua over Tutu Atwell. Yeah, man, Puka's tough. He's, a rookie, I think 5th or 6th round pick. That's not the type of profile that usually has a huge role in week 1, but he has gotten consistent hype from the beat reporters. He was maybe even slated to be the 3rd wide receiver. It was a battle between him and Tutu even before this Kupp news. So we know the team likes him more than the typical 6th round wide receiver. So he's the guy I'm betting on. I know there's Tutu people out there as well, but man, Tutu's just so damn small. I don't know if he's gonna be able to do the run blocking stuff that is required to play a ton of snaps in an NFL offense. I think Puka is sort of the more well-rounded talent profile that I want to bet on out of those Rams wide receivers.
Yeah, and I mean, something Sam said to me the other day is like Tutu's had his chance to break out. Like Tutu has had plenty of chances and not been able to do it. At least there's like some mystery around Buca, and maybe he can. So I would agree with the way we have it here. Buca slightly ahead of Tutu if you're looking to add someone there. I want to talk about a couple more of these other guys. We have Sean Tucker as the number one priority for deeper league targets, 3 to 5% fab recommendation. Now, they did list Sean Tucker as their number 2 running back today. We know Chase Edmonds is also on the team. We know Keyshawn Vaughn is also on the team. Dave Canales seemed to think that Rachaad White is a cut above, if he's being honest. He seemed to think Rachaad White is a cut above the rest of these guys. I think the point on Sean Tucker, to me at least, is that he is not a typical UDFA. If Sean Tucker had never had this medical issue, I don't know, Sam, 3rd round, he would have gone in the real NFL draft, like 3rd round or something like that. And then he's in that like range with A-Chain and Kendre Miller and the guys that people are super excited about. Again, the only reason Sean Tucker was not drafted is because he had this medical condition, which has since been resolved. So yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about what type of players maybe you'd be dropping Sean Tucker for in his outlook?
Yeah, I think so. A couple other things on Tucker. I think you're right. That sort of round 3, round 4 sort of draft capital is, if you look at sort of the people who are projecting that stuff back in April, that's how Tucker was viewed. So I think you're totally right about that. He just had an awesome collegiate production profile, over 1,000 yards each of his last 2 seasons at Syracuse, caught 36 balls in one season there. So really strong producer. Those are really good numbers for a college back. So yeah, totally agree. It's not your typical UDFA. If you sort of see UDFA and want to rule him out for that, I would not. Yeah, this 3. So I do feel more bullish about him, knowing the team listed him as the running back 2. In the preseason, there were some minor concerns on that because Keyshawn Vaughn was still playing ahead of him in the last game. I'm now kind of buying that Tucker is the clear RB2 there. So I think if you want to get him, you might, in these deeper leagues, you might need to go a little bit higher than 3 to 5%, maybe something closer to 10%. I think that's a reasonable bid for Tucker. And yeah, the type of guys that I'd be willing to drop for him, I like him better than some of these Colts flyers. We can talk about them later, but the Evan Hull, Deion Jackson, Zach Moss, I think I prefer Tucker to those guys. I also do prefer him to Deuce Vaughn, Paris Campbell. Not everyone that you're seeing on this drop list here, but I think there's plenty of sort of last round flyers that didn't pan out in these deeper leagues. Like if you took a stab on Malik Davis, obviously that didn't work out. I'm certainly looking to add Tucker over some of those other, perhaps speculative RB2s that didn't really come to fruition.
Yeah, Darren has asked a good question. I think Tucker, Hull, or Damian Harris. My first instinct is it's Damian Harris without a doubt. Like we know Damian Harris is a very good NFL running back. However, I think there's some concerns that Latavius Murray eats into him a little bit. I don't know. I think it's Damian Harris here for me. What do you think about Tucker, Hull, or Damian Harris?
Yeah, it's Damian Harris for me. Again, I am somewhat excited about Tucker, but we have to realize this is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, and you're comparing that to the Buffalo Bills. It's just a whole different level of potential scoring there in my mind. So it's Harris for me. I think I would have Tucker ranked above Hull there as a bench stash.
Just on Hull for a second here, do you think Hull has any long-term upside? Because I do think in week 1, Hull is going to play the pass down role for the Colts. Now, how valuable is that? Anthony Richardson is not going to be a very good thrower at the running back position. So yeah, what do you think about Hull long-term here?
Hull is my favorite. If you're looking for a long-term play in the Colts backfield, Hull is my favorite of the 3, the other 2 being Deion Jackson and Zach Moss. Again, I think he has the most sort of well-rounded skill set. So if we knew for a fact it was just those 3 backs in the backfield going forward, I would feel pretty good about Hull's potential to emerge there. The thing is that the Taylor thing is still looming. We know they've worked out Kareem Hunt and some of these other veteran running backs. So that's where I think there's risk of sort of a rug pull there for Hull. But I do think he has good long-term potential. But as you can see from my fab recommendations, I just, assuming you have like another decent flyer on your bench, I'm not moving mountains to get Evan Hull off the waiver wire. I think the Colts backfield is just not going to be one that's going to produce a ton of points to the running back position. And it's going to be a committee for a while. I expect even if Hull does consolidate, it'll take a lot of time. So I'm just not overly excited about him.
Agreed. They're going to have a committee. It's not going to be and you're going to get the tush-push stuff with Anthony Richardson. He's not going to throw very well at running back. It's just not a high upside situation. And after week 1, when the Colts no longer have to guarantee a contract to someone, they could bring in, Kareem Hunt for a week or, see how it goes, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
All right. One other guy that I wanted to talk about before we get to your questions, and I do want to get to a bunch of your questions today, is the whole Kieran Williams thing. I mean, beat reporters out of LA are convinced that Kieran Williams is going to be the pass down back. That is not how the history has gone for Sean McVay. Sean McVay has always preferred to use, when he has a good back, a guy for all the snaps. I mean, we've seen it so many times with Sean McVay. Now, does he still consider Cam Akers a very good back? That is up for debate. So what do you think about holding on to Kieran Williams right now and seeing how it goes in week 1?
I think he is a worthy stash to see what happens. Again, to give a little more context, he's been rested throughout the entire preseason, along with Cam Akers and Cooper Kupp and Van Jefferson, a couple other of the starters in the Rams. So to me, that pretty clearly indicates he's way ahead of the Ronnie Rivers. I think maybe Royce Freeman's the other back on the roster right now. He's pretty clearly the RB2, which is good for an end of bench stash. How his role shakes out, it's kind of interesting because you look at him last year, and he started playing in week 10 last year and had some pretty high snap rates. Actually, in week 11 and week 12, he led the Rams backfield in touches. But then as Cam Akers sort of seemed to return to health, they almost entirely phased Kyren out of the game plan in weeks 15 through 17. And Cam Akers was playing crazy high snap shares, like over 75% of the snaps. It really, if you take those last 3 weeks as a signal, it seems like the team wanted to use Cam Akers as sort of a full-time back. So my assumption is that Cam Akers is the guy here. If he fails, I think the team is going to be willing to use Kyren a little bit more. But I think that Cam Akers will start off in a pretty big role here, and it's going to be sort of his to lose. So I don't expect to be able to start Kieran Williams. Again, though, as a clear running back 2 on his team, I think he's certainly worthy of a stash.
I mean, I know for a fact that they liked him and were planning to use him a bunch in week 1 last year. He got hurt on the opening kickoff. I mean, just a total disaster. All right. We got about 15 more minutes here. I want to get to as many questions as we can from the people, because after all, Sam, we are men of the people. From Tony, he says, drop Jerome Ford for Dante Foreman or Kenny Gainwell. I would rank those guys Gainwell, then Ford, then Foreman. I thought there was a chance Foreman actually wasn't going to make the team. I have been on Roshan Johnson much more than Dante Foreman, have not taken Foreman at all. Jerome Ford, I think, is going to be able to go in week 1, I'm guessing, with that hamstring injury, but still think the uncertainty in the Eagles backfield, it would be Gainwell first for me, then Ford, then Foreman. Any other thoughts there, Sam?
I'm totally in alignment there. I think Gainwell's pretty clear tier ahead of Ford, and then I think another tier drop to Foreman. So pretty clear ordering. Yeah, we just don't know what's going to happen with the Eagles backfield. I think there's a chance after week 1, Kenny Gainwell is the cover boy of all the waiver wire articles for leagues where he's still available. He could have a bigger role than expected as they maybe sort of slow play DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny. So Gainwell's the clear out for me there.
Alberto says drop Nico Collins or Kendrick Miller. I'll go this one to you, Sam, but I do want to note Kendrick Miller is dealing with an injury. We've talked to Underhill. I think it's totally 50-50 if Kendrick Miller plays in week 1 or not. So, yeah, what do you think about who'd you rather have on your roster, Sam, Nico Collins or Kendrick Miller?
Yeah, assuming like a relatively balanced roster here, obviously somewhat roster dependent, I'd rather have Nico Collins. I am somewhat excited about Kendrick, but early season hamstring injury. Alvin Kamara is coming back pretty soon. Yeah. So what really is Kendrick's upside beyond this few couple weeks? I prefer the sort of bet on Nico Collins as a sort of low key year 3 breakout wide receiver.
Yeah, I would agree there. The only thing I'd say on Kendrick is my bull case for Kendrick was these first 3 games while Alvin Kamara is suspended, Kendrick goes in there and plays really well, and then they can't take him off the field, right? And then that
Yeah.
coincides with Kamara kind of declining last year, and then you get something exciting with Kendrick Miller. But if he's going to be banged up for these first 3 games, I mean, just bad timing on Kendrick.
Yeah.
Nick says he thinks he doesn't want to play defense in week 1 to hold on to Kendrick Miller and Mims. 8 teams make the playoffs in a 12-team league. Thoughts? See, this is the kind of weird stuff that like people need to think about for themselves. 8 teams make the playoffs in a 12-team league. This is what's wrong with society, Nick. These participation trophies. Well, you can't have 8 teams make the playoffs in a 12-team league. I'd be hard-pressed to not try to win every single week. And part of winning to me is playing a defense. Any thoughts on this here, Nick? Sam?
Yeah, I have gotten this question before from people. I'm not overthinking it. I'm starting a defense. Even 8 teams making the playoffs, just kind of punting points in a week to hold on to someone like Kendrick Miller doesn't seem worth it for me.
And you want to have a high seed in the playoffs. Like you want to play some dusty team who isn't like paying attention to his team that much,
Yeah. The one thing I'll say, and this is super niche, but if you're able to roster like a defense on Monday night and then you have a player in that game that you want to add, I have done that before where I'll drop my kicker or defense Monday night because I know it's not going to impact I already know the result of the matchup basically, and then I can stash another player there. But in this situation, I don't think you can do that with these players. They're not playing Monday night as far as I know. So that's tough.
Any thoughts on Jalen Hyatt from Dylan? He says Giants wide receiver situation seems like a mystery. Yeah. Just talk to Silva about this on the team by team pods. Those will be out later tonight. I think Jalen Hyatt is rising, man. I was too low. It was my fault. I was too low on Jalen Hyatt to start the offseason. Brian Daboll is not some dunce like when the Bears drafted Velus Jones or all these like dumb teams that do dumb stuff. Brian Daboll is not going to draft a guy who can't see a clear path for. And I think the clear path has been on the outside, which is surprising considering Hyatt was mostly in the slot at Tennessee. Now, they have Darius Slayton, they have Isaiah Hodgins. That is not a lot to overcome on the outside for Jalen Hyatt. I think right away, like as soon as week 1, Jalen Hyatt will be mixing in as the 4th wide receiver for this team. And so if I'm in a deep league, I kind of like holding on to Jalen Hyatt here. Am I too high on Jalen Hyatt, Sam?
No, I'm pretty high on him as well. Again, look for upside stashes on week 1. Don't play it safe with a guy like, again, I don't want to rag on DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, MVS, but I'd much rather hold a lottery ticket like Jalen Hyatt because his value could really explode. Whereas those guys, we kind of know what they are. Maybe they're useful starters for the flex weeks, but I like Hyatt. I'm with you. He just has a very unique element to his game that nobody else in the Giants wide receiver room has. I think Daboll is a smart enough guy that he realizes that and is going to want him to be on the field sort of more than we're expecting right now.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting one for extreme deep leaguers for sure. Jerome Ford or Sean Tucker in half PPR, Sean, any takes there for the people?
This is tough. I think I would go with Jerome Ford though. And that's just, again, if we're asking who has a better chance to emerge as a starter without the starter ahead of them getting injured, it would be Tucker. But man, I just expect Cleveland to be so much better than Tampa Bay. I really don't want to be betting a lot on the Baker Mayfield-led Tampa Bay Bucs offense. So even if Tucker does have a much bigger role than expected, what are we really talking about in Tampa Bay? Give me the upside of Jerome Ford, but I think this one's at least close.
I think my point would be if Rachaad White got hurt, they're going to go to a full-blown committee. It's not going to be like Sean Tucker's the man. And I'm not saying Jerome Ford's going to be the full-blown man for the Browns if something happened to Nick Chubb, but I think he'd have a really good role. I mean, they were legit excited about Jerome Ford to be their backup running back. I wish he didn't have the hamstring thing pop up in August, but yeah, I think I prefer Ford also.
They also cut the other backups. I know they brought in Pierre Strong, but they traded nothing to get him, and they cut their other backups, Demetric Felton, and John Kelly. So I think that signals they feel pretty good about Ford's health. He's practicing, so yeah, it's Ford for me. Breaking
news into the show. Rap Sheet has reported that Travis Kelce's injury is not believed to be long-term. So that's good. He's not out for the season, I guess, is what Rap Sheet is reporting there. We still don't know how long he'll be out. Regizzle says Chuba Hubbard, Ty Chandler, Kenny Gainwell, Sean Tucker, choose 2 to hold. Certainly Gainwell would be 1 for me. So 1 out of Hubbard, Chandler, and Tucker. You have a preference there, Sam?
Yeah. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm going with the offense that I believe in most when I'm choosing between sort of these uncertain running back twos. And that's Minnesota Vikings and Ty Chandler.
Yes.
And Gainwell is the clear number one for me. But yeah, those are all close. Like Chandler versus Hubbard, I think is the same tier. I could see how you disagree there, but I just want to bet on the Vikings offense over the Panthers offense at that point.
Agreed. And I kind of think Ty Chandler can play a little bit too.
I do,
also.
yeah. Good in the preseason.
Mario says we're sleeping on Julio McLaughlin. Remember the name. We are not sleeping on him. I had a whole conversation with Evan today on the podcast about Julio McLaughlin, and Julio McLaughlin was first team all preseason for those of you who played preseason DFS. Dude was awesome in the preseason. Now, we know they like Samaje Perine. They went out and got him first day of free agency. We know Javonte Williams is a baller. Health looks good. Is there room for Julio McLaughlin? This strikes me as like a dynasty bro, deep league stash. I'm not sure I would be rostering McLaughlin in any type of redraft, Sam. What do you think?
No, I mean, you'd have to be playing in like a probably 24 roster spot redraft league, which I don't even know if those exist. But yeah, awesome. He made the team as a UDFA. Again, like a somewhat uncertain backfield with Javonte's injury and Perine being sort of a career rotational guy. I kind of get it with McLaughlin, but yeah, not above any of these other guys we've talked about today. Not above anybody on my list, but keep your eye on him. I think it's awesome. He made the team as a UDFA. That's a good story to monitor going forward.
Epri187 says nobody likes KJ Osborne this year. So the question to me is, will KJ Osborne see a role change? Because last year his role is what it was. It wasn't very valuable in fantasy. I know he had a couple huge games. I do think he's maybe a little bit underrated, but they used the first round pick on Jordan Addison, presumably to play the Adam Thielen role. Obviously, Adam Thielen ran the second most routes in the entire league last year. If Jordan Addison immediately takes the Adam Thielen role, Osborne's role is no different. So he's not the kind of guy that I like to roster on my bench, but you might be able to get some usable weeks out of him. What do you think about KJ Osborne, Sam?
Yeah, for me, he's kind of a best ball only guy. I mean, he put up 650 yards last year, and that was with Hawkinson only there for half the year. That was with Adam Thielen running a ton of routes. You replace Thielen with Addison, and I don't see how Osborne kind of grows his role. Maybe early in the season, I'm wrong there, and Osborne plays more than expected, but I don't think he's not the type of upside bet that I expect to grow in value over the course of the season, barring an injury to Addison or Justin Jefferson.
And that's the thing when you're playing managed. It's not like best ball where like, man, if I can just get 8 points out of KJ Osborne, it counts for me this week. That's huge. I mean, you need some guys on your managed team to break out, and like KJ Osborne has a very, very low chance of breaking out. Champ says better tight end stash between Luke Musgrave and Jake Ferguson. A lot of positive hype on both of these guys. I think the hype on them may have gotten a bit out of control. I saw them going like round 14 in best ball, which struck me as way too high. However, I can't deny they both appear to have great roles. Who do you prefer between these two, Musgrave and Ferguson, Sam?
I'm going with Musgrave here. I think both are interesting if you're looking for a tight end stash on your bench. But, man, Musgrave, he got picked really high in the NFL draft, got second-round draft capital. He had some really awesome games his senior year. He got injured, so didn't really fully get to show what he can do. But he's an elite athlete. He's in sort of a wide receiver room in Green Bay that's fairly unproven. I think he's going to play like close to every snap. That's what we saw in the preseason. So yeah, I kind of like the rookie upside here with Musgrave. But again, I do like both guys if you're looking for sort of a tight end backup in deeper leagues.
I have a quiet take I've been afraid to say out loud, but I do think that the Packers offense is actually going to be good this year. I've been afraid to say it. I do think that the Packers, whatever they are, like 4-1 or something crazy to win the division, like the Lions to me are so overrated. And so I have a bunch of Packers to win the division. And I think Musgrave's going to play a ton. I think he just completely lapped Tucker Kraft. So yeah, it'd be Musgrave for me as well. Andre says he has Rashad White. Should he drop, I believe that's Eli Mitchell or A-Chain for Tucker? So I'm not dropping A-Chain given what's going on in Miami's backfield. I think the question is, should you drop Eli Mitchell for Sean Tucker? Any thoughts there, Sam?
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I kind of understand you want the insurance policy for your starting running back. Maybe if we see Tucker, play really well in week one, I would do that. But Elijah Mitchell has just proven a lot more at the NFL level than Sean Tucker has. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but the San Francisco 49ers are going to score way more touchdowns than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I really like the Mitchell upside stash on my bench. And I think even in a pinch, you could probably start him at running back 2 some weeks when, buys and injuries stack up. I much prefer Mitchell to Tucker at this point.
So many Sean Tucker questions here. He is the buzz guy of the week. Would you drop Jonathan Mingo for Sean Tucker? Jonathan Mingo, the rookie, of course. I don't know exactly how it's going to go between Thielen, Chark, and Mingo. I do think that Mingo's skill set is somewhat interesting, and he at least has solid draft capital, rookie wide receiver. But yeah, what do you think about this one, Sean? Sam.
Yeah.
I have Sean Tucker on my brain.
We've got 20 questions about Sean Tucker. It's understood. Yeah, it's tough without seeing your roster. I think assuming you have a balanced roster, I still prefer Mingo. If this is a team you're absolutely loaded at wide receiver and Mingo's like your wide receiver 7 or something, and you need some more upside stashes at running back, I don't think it's a terrible move. But again, I think Mingo's going to have a role from day one, like almost guaranteed. That's what they showed in the preseason. With Tucker, we're still kind of like making some assumptions based on the team official depth chart, which can be misleading, and beat reporters. Like we haven't actually seen it in a game yet. So still give me the rookie second round wide receiver over the undrafted free agent running back.
Justin says, what are our thoughts on Juwan Johnson? Seems like he could maybe be a sneaky top 10 tight end. Yeah, if you watch the videos or listen to the podcast with Silva, Silva's been big time on Juwan Johnson for months now. We know Derek Carr likes to throw the ball over the middle of the field. We know he likes to use the tight end a ton, and he has a ton of rapport with Juwan Johnson, who I think can play a little bit. Now, they do have other tight ends there. We know Taysom's going to be in the mix as well. But yeah, I think I'd want to hold Juwan Johnson most likely, depending on how thin your bench is. Any thoughts there, Sam?
Yeah, I like Johnson. Not a ton to add. He's definitely, if you're a Kelsey team that needs a replacement, he's probably at the top of my list for guys that could plausibly be on the waiver wire in shallower leagues. Yeah, converted wide receiver. It's like shades of Darren Waller, sort of a late career breakout for Juwan Johnson, I think, is in play in New Orleans. I know the team is just really high in him. He's been getting tons of positive reports out of the New Orleans beat reporters as well. So Juwan Johnson's a good stash for sure.
I had a tweet today that I didn't think was going to be controversial, but I guess there it is. So I think that, and I think Mark Andrews is going to be fine for Sunday, but they haven't disclosed what his injury is. I don't know exactly what's going on with Mark Andrews. So it's at least worth considering this for people who have Mark Andrews. I think if Andrews were to miss a game, Isaiah Likely would be a top 5 tight end. And that's not saying he's going to blow the doors off. To be a top 5 tight end, you don't have to do that much. I mean, top 5 tight end in fantasy now is like 8 points a game or something like that. It's not crazy at all. Isaiah Likely has done nothing but produce preseason. Anytime he's gotten a chance in the regular season. Todd Monken famously uses tight ends very well in his offenses. So I didn't think it was a hot take to say that Isaiah Likely would be a top 5 tight end option if Andrews was out. But I got a bunch of pushback on it, so I'm open to being wrong here. Sam, what do you think about holding Likely for Andrews owners?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like you said, so if you're asking me, would I rather, if I'm an Andrews owner and my choice is Isaiah Likely versus Gerald Everett or something like that, I'm going with Isaiah Likely because, like you said, if Andrews goes down, I'd much rather have Isaiah Likely on my roster, who's going to project, I think, much better than someone like Gerald Everett. Not to knock Everett, I think he's a decent tight end stash at this point as well. But if you're comparing Likely to sort of another backup tight end option, you might as well go with the guy that has more upside in the event of an Andrews injury, because that's when you're going to need your backup tight end, right? So that's my answer to that. I think in shallower leagues, if you're comparing comparing Likely to some of these handcuff running back types like Tank Bigsby, Jalen Warren, even like Sean Tucker, Jerome Ford, I think I prefer going with the sort of, Ford, Hubbard running back types over Likely. But deeper leagues than that, where those guys are scooped up and you're looking at, really gross waivers options, I don't think Likely is a bad use of a roster spot.
I mean, if I have Mark Andrews and like I also have, Gerald Everett, like you said, or even someone like Sam Laporta or whatever, I'm not going to start that. I'm not going to start Sam Laporta.
Yeah.
As long as Andrews is healthy. So like what you have to ask yourself is if Andrews were to get hurt, would I rather have Laporta or Likely? To me, it's Likely. And they don't have a bye until week 13. We can just figure it out then. So I don't know. I didn't think that was a hot take, but whatever. Alberto says Nico Collins or I believe he's referring to Michael Wilson here, the Arizona wide receiver. Easily Nico Collins for me there. I get the appeal on Michael Wilson, but I think Nico has shown to be a reasonably good NFL player already. Like Sam said, there's some breakout appeal there. So I think that's kind of a no-brainer there on Nico.
Yeah, nothing to add there. It's Nico for me, for sure.
Bateman or Jalen Hyatt. It's got to be Bateman there. You see as Bateman. Home league waivers, Sam does have Bateman on top of the list there.
Yeah, one quick rant on that. Bateman's rostered in 17% of ESPN league. What are we doing on ESPN, guys? Go add Rashad Bateman. I don't want to have to put him on this waiver target list. You shouldn't be rostered in that low percentage of leagues.
See, man, this is the stuff I'm talking about. I don't want to drop any of these guys. Like Cooper needs to drop for a Kelsey replacement. He's got to drop one of Bigsby, A-Chain, or Jaden Reed. I don't want to drop any of these guys, especially with Romeo Doubs with a hamstring injury. I think Romeo Doubs is probably going to play, but still. So I don't know, man. I guess I would probably rather hold running back lottery tickets over wide receiver lottery tickets. So I guess I would drop Jaden Reed, but I don't feel good about it. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, it's the same. I don't like recommending dropping Jaden Reed because I'm quite high on him. Like you said, especially with the Doubs injury. But yeah, I'm not dropping Bigsby or A-Chain. So I guess it's Reed in this scenario. That's a tough spot to be in.
Joe K asked about Leonard Fournette. So I haven't heard a single thing about Leonard Fournette, like complete radio silence. I know he tweeted something like, I'm not done yet or something like that. Maybe after week 1 when salaries aren't guaranteed, Fournette and Hunt get their chance. So I get the idea. But I still think I'd rather have guys that are actually in the NFL over Fournette at this point. I don't know, though. What do you think about Fournette holding until maybe he gets something in week 2?
Yeah, no, I'm taking these guys, Tucker and Hull, easily over Fournette. Yeah. He's a guy you can get once he signs the team. I mean, what's the track record of, old free agent running backs who aren't on a team by week 1 being that relevant in fantasy? Like, it's probably not looking that great for Fournette at this point. I get he has some theoretical value, but give me the guys on rosters now.
Yes, guys in the NFL is who we want to be rostering. I've held the bag for Will Fuller for way too long. We didn't touch too much on Michael Wilson in the previous question, but he says, is Michael Wilson above or below this list of the 10 guys for here? Would you rather have Michael Wilson than any of these guys here, Sam?
I think you can put him in the tier of Deontay Hardy, Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell. I think he probably belongs in that group. Honestly, in this article, I wanted to highlight Puka and Tutu because people are going to be asking about the, Rams wide receiver room, but you can put Wilson in that group. I think there's some reason to be excited about him. A rookie, round 3 wide receiver that immediately earns a starting outside wide receiver role in the NFL. That's certainly interesting to me. But then you got to realize, Josh Dobbs or Clayton Tune is throwing passes to him, and he didn't really have a great collegiate production profile. So it's not that exciting for me, but I think fair to put him in that tier of, the guys 8 through 10 on this list here.
I mean, to be clear, I think Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch are probably both better than Michael Wilson, but they can only play in the slot. And so when they're in 2 wide receiver sets, or when we need 3 wide receiver sets and guys outside, like Michael Wilson's going to be out there. So, yeah. All right. We got about 5 more minutes here. We'll just take a couple more questions here. Chuba or Sean Tucker real quick, Sam. I know we beat this one to death.
Yeah. Still Chuba for me. But this one is really close. Thinking about this more, I think I have a little bit of best ball brain with Chuba. In a managed league, I think I would go Sean Tucker. Yeah. I think I don't feel great about either of these offenses, but Sean Tucker at least has a chance to emerge as the starter over Rachaad White, in my opinion. People hate on Miles Sanders, but he got paid starters money. Chuba Hubbard is not becoming the starter here as much as people are kind of talking themselves into it. I really do think Rachaad White played very poorly last year. I know he caught a ton of passes, but you look at his efficiency metrics, he was not a good rusher of the football, and I think Sean Tucker could be a better rusher of the football than Rachaad White. I do not think Chuba Hubbard is a better rusher than Miles Sanders. And the team just paid him a ton of money. They're not going to flip that quickly for Chuba over Miles.
This is an interesting one. Deion Jackson or Buca. Deion Jackson, I think, is going to start for the Colts in week 1. I'm just not sure how long he can hold on for the job. I mean, Zach Moss is going to be back. Obviously, when Cooper Kupp comes back, Buca is pretty dusted also. Who do you prefer between these two?
Yeah, the way you phrased it, if you are strong at running back and weaker at wide receiver, I think I would go Buca in this situation because, like you said, I don't expect Deion Jackson to have that big of a role, and I also expect that he probably loses his role to A, once Zach Moss comes back from injury, and B, when rookie Evan Hull kind of proves himself a bit more, and then obviously C, Jonathan Taylor looming there. So if there's no way you're starting Deion Jackson for your first couple weeks, but you theoretically could use some wide receiver upside early in the season, I think I'd go with Buca on this roster.
Laporta or Schultz. I'm a little bit surprised either of them are on waivers. Laporta is more exciting, right? Like, I don't think we're going to get some huge breakout out of Schultz. And I would probably go Laporta here just because they're going to have to throw the ball and throw it a ton. It's a pretty good spot for Laporta in week 1. Jameson Williams isn't out there yet. We haven't finished our full week 1 projections quite yet. Once we do, we'll know who we like better for week 1. But yeah, any thoughts on holding Laporta or Schultz?
Yeah, Laporta for me. I think it's A, the points you said, and B, Laporta is someone by the end of the year who I think can really increase in value. I think Schultz could totally be a fine starting tight end, but I don't really imagine a scenario where you're killing yourself for not having rostered Dalton Schultz. I think you're going to be able to find replaceable production off the wire.
Yeah. I mean, I had the full fade on so much on Dalton Schultz when he was playing on the Cowboys. I mean, now he's on the Texans, you know.
Yeah.
Dylan says thoughts on stashing John Menchie over some of these other waiver names. Actually, the guy that I would want to stash if he's available over Menchie is Tank Dell. I prefer Tank Dell to Menchie. I think the Texans want to get Tank Dell a real role quickly. Now, it might be a gadgety role. It might be a schemed role, but it's still a role. What do you think about Menchie over some of these other guys?
Yeah, Menchie, obviously an awesome real life story. Don't want to bag on him too much. You know, he obviously was dealing with, was it leukemia or some form of cancer? Yeah. So awesome for him that he's back on the field. The quotes from the team have been more along the lines of, you know, we're happy he's back playing football, but not overly positive. It looked like he was behind, you know, Tank Dell, Noah Brown, Robert Woods, and Nico Collins. I think he's opening the season as the wide receiver 5 in Houston. Like you said, if you're looking for a flyer on the Texans that could emerge, I would rather go after Tank Dell than John Menchie.
All right. Last one we're going to do here today comes from Kevin. He says, Algier or Bigsby in season long if your RB1 is Bijan. Now, if you looked at our season long rankings, we had Bigsby pretty clearly ahead of Algier. Does it change your mind, though, Sam, if you have Bijan on your team?
It does not. I'm still going Bigsby over Algier. I'm not totally against handcuffing if it's at the right price, but I think, you know, if Bijan goes down, it's obviously nice if you have Algier, but you're in a lot of trouble in that scenario. If Bijan goes down, I imagine it's going to be somewhat of a committee with Algier and Patterson. So I'd prefer the upside shot on Tank Bigsby, even if I have Bijan.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, my only thing is, like, I thought Algier was awesome last year. Well, maybe not awesome, but like good at least.
Yeah.
Are we sure that Algier wouldn't get the ball 15, 18 times if something happened to Bijan? Like, I don't know. I'd be tempted there at least. And maybe it's because I'm more of an ETN truther than a lot of these other people are. But yeah, I'd be tempted to go with the handcuff here. But it would depend a lot on the rest of my roster and stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, I don't want to nitpick Algier too much for the committee point because I do think, you know, if we're talking backup running backs that I feel best about their contingent value, Algier is certainly up there. I guess, you know, if you're looking, it depends, I guess, also who your RB2 is. If you need like a starter alongside Bijan, I prefer Tank. If you're like pretty deep at running back and you just need someone in the event of a Bijan injury, then I'd go with Algier. So a little nuance, but probably depends who your RB2, RB3 is in this scenario.
Yes, the waiver stuff is extremely nuanced, Sam, and that's why we are here to help the people with the nuance. I think by doing this show, and we're going to do it as much as we can this season, we're able to give some context around the waiver stuff because it is a lot team dependent, what you have, what your league looks like, et cetera, et cetera. But Hope this was helpful to help you guys get your season-long rosters set for week 1. Once again, if you have not checked out our in-season product yet, head to establistherun.com/subscribe. You can see everything we have going on in the in-season product there. Appreciate you guys being here and hanging out. For Sam, for producer Adam, that's me. I am also the host, Adam. Good luck, everybody.